we go. All right. So, Chapter 10 is all about neuromusculoskeletal changes in the older adult. So some important changes that happen with older people is there's a decreased muscle strength and muscle power. We're going to talk about what the difference is between those two and what is more important as far as occupational therapy goes. There's a marked loss of skeletal muscle, changes in postural alignment. We're going to talk about those too. Bone and cartilage changes in their balance and gait, decreased maximal speed of movement, and decreased proprioception skills. We need to define 5 different groups, and you're going to want to know these as far as aging goes, or groups of people that are aging. You have the physically elite. These are people that train on a daily basis. They may compete in sporting competitions. They work and do things that are physically demanding, kind of as a just daily occupation. They enjoy it. This is a little bit of a rare group when you start talking about geriatrics. These are people that have probably trained and just trained the majority of their lives for something. These are the people that are in their 70s and 80s and running marathons. I mean, these are your top dogs of health at that age group. The next one down is the physically fit. They still may work in whatever chosen occupation that they have. They may participate in activities with individuals that are younger than themselves and continue exercise on a regular basis, but it's not it's not up there with the elite people. They're not running marathons and stuff like that. Then you have the physically independent. These are people that participate in advanced ADLs and continue to be active in hobbies and leisure activities. These people might have one or more chronic conditions, but they are functioning independently. They don't need caregiver assistance, any of that. We good with those 3? Okay. The next one is the physically frail. These people may live independently with some type of assistance, whether it be environmental, like in a skilled nursing facility or an adult living facility. But they may be able to, they might not be able to engage in certain IDLs. They may need someone to go get their groceries for them. It's too physically demanding, those kind of things. And then lastly is the physically dependent. These are people that cannot perform some of their ADLs or IDLs and may require some type of institutional care. These are going to be the people that are in skilled nursing facilities or require a caregiver assistance 24 hours to be at home. Okay. All right, so muscle strength and muscle power. The difference between muscle strength and muscle power is speed. So how strong somebody is and how fast that they can do something is the difference. So when we think of muscle strength, I want you to think of someone lifting a couch. That's strength, right? Power is how hard they may be able to punch something. Okay? That's the difference. Which one do you guys think is more important for performing ADLs? Why? Why do you think strength is more important than power? Huh? Stability. In what ways? Okay, just being able to lift, do basic things. What else does strength play a major part in? Walking, balance plays a huge part in it. Joint stability, everything relies on muscle strength, right? How fast you do something is not necessarily. Now, there are certain tests that we do for, muscle power and gait and stuff like that. But as far as performing just basic ADLs and doing your daily routine, strength is more important. Maximum muscle strength is achieved in an individual's 20s and 30s. And loss of muscle strength begins in one's 40s, and it really picks up after somebody hits 70. Muscle power tends to decline more than muscle strength. Think about, your older population, they move much slower. They may be still strong as an ox, but they move slower regardless. Then lastly is loss of muscle mass. That's called sarcopenia. It's just a definition that you guys need to remember. That's the greatest contributing factor to all of these changes. That's just more or less a loss of muscle mass. Okay. Some age-related changes in muscle composition, meaning that there's more breakdown and fewer muscle fibers in older adults. That loss of muscle tissue, decline in skeletal muscle fibers, all this starts to reduce, making it much harder to move and requiring more of a more effort to move. It's what makes them move slower. Some factors that contribute to this muscle-related change or age-related muscle change is poor nutrition. I want you guys to remember that protein is extremely important in an elderly person's diet. If you go in skilled nursing facilities, they have the majority of their patients, unless they have some type of a kidney issue or whichever that restricts it, they have them on high-protein diets. The reason being they're trying to slow down that loss of muscle mass, loss of muscle fibers. There is a amazing protein shake that I introduced into my skilled nursing facility. It's the only one they use now. It's called Premier Protein. You get it at Sam's Club. It's 30 grams of protein and tastes like melted ice cream. It has 4 or 5 grams of sugar in it. I always recommend those to patients when they're on a high protein diet because they are adequately available. You can get them at Walmart, Sam's, wherever. Way cheaper at Sam's if you want to know. But they taste good. Most protein shakes that they give elderly people taste like chalk and they're nasty. But if you give them this, I've never had a patient turn it down because it literally tastes like melted ice cream if you've never had one. And they have tons of flavors. And I have not found a protein shake that they give older people that is a higher content of protein. 30 grams is a lot of protein in this little bottle. And, but they give that to people with bed sores and wounds too, because protein is an important part of healing. So they will put them on high protein diets to help with that too. There's a decrease in capillaries per muscle fiber. Again, just that breakdown. There's hormonal changes, immunological changes. And then lastly is disuse. These are where people's just not using, not moving. You don't use it, you lose it. Very true. That's reversible. The other ones are a little bit more hard. Poor nutrition would be the next one that, add in some protein. You can see some gains there. But the decrease in muscle fiber, it's a lot harder to reverse. All right, so what are some consequences of the loss of muscle strength? There's a lot of them. Movement and performance of almost every ADL is much more difficult. If someone has lost their muscle strength, everything is going to be harder. Impaired mobility, a loss of independence, increased risk of falls. That's extremely important in the elderly population because their bone density is worse. And if someone falls at an older age, that can be catastrophic. It can be life-ending. So that's why fall risk management is one of the biggest things that we focus on. And then muscle power may be even more influential than muscle strength on their mobility, function, and performance. Okay? Strength is more important to perform just basic ADLs, but the power also plays an incredibly important part for their mobility and function. The reason being, if someone is walking, and PT gets into this a whole lot more, but when someone is walking and that timed up and go test, you remember that from last semester, and that time, and after they go past a certain rate or a certain time, they're at an increased risk for falls. That's why, because muscle power has gone down. Okay. So when we're talking about mobility, and just mobility of itself, muscle power may be considered more important depending on the patient. Overall, ADL muscle strength is more. Okay. Some other ones are reducing the maximum loads that someone can lift, slow walking speeds, reducing the ability to balance. Balance is a massive issue. And then affecting their ability to get in and out of bed, cross a street, exit a car, and climb stairs. All of these things that we just take for granted that is very easy, we don't even think anything of it, become very difficult for somebody in later stages of life that have a lot of muscle strength issues. All right, so some changes in the skeletal system is bone loss actually begins when you're in your 30s. Bone loss is greater in women, particularly in the first decade post-menopause. Okay? Those are both important things to know. Some bone remodeling. Your bones look a little bit different when you get older, just from wear and tear and, you know, all these different types of cells that are involved. Some major type of bone cells that are involved are the osteocytes. These are cells that embed in mineralized bone, which direct remodeling when fatigue, damage, and changes happen or they're detected. This is kind of like, I like to think of osteocytes as the healing cells in bones. Then you have osteoblasts. These are responsible for bone formation. Then osteoclasts, these are responsible for bone resorption. Resorption is right where old bone breaks down and it's replaced with new bone. It's like a cycle of bone growth. Okay, you guys got those three? All right. All right, so what are some contributing factors to someone's bone health? Some things that we cannot change is age, cellular regulation. This is all individual, their gender or their ethnicity. There's kind of some varying factors on all of that. And there's nothing we can do about those. Some modifiable factors, what we can do is nutrition. We can educate them on the higher proteins and things like that. Exercise, their body weight and hormones. These are things that we can do, or their doctor can help regulate, like the hormones. If we target some of these modifiable factors, we can slow down the loss of bone, which is extremely important for safety, right? Because if someone has much stronger bones and their bone density is better, they're less likely to break a hip when they inevitably fall on the ice going out to get their newspaper. Okay? All right. Some changes in cartilage, joints, and tendons. There's differences in collagen and elastin and how well they move. There's decreases in all kinds of different proteins that are found in cartilage. The amount of elastin decreases and makes the elasticity of different tissues and joints and cartilage tougher, makes it less movable, less pliable. The cartilage that normally covers the joints thins and deteriorates, especially in weight-bearing joints. This is where your older people, it might not be arthritis, it very well could be some deterioration of a tendon or cartilage in the joint. Oh, my knees hurt. Oh, my shoulder hurts. It might not be arthritis. They might not have arthritis, but it very well could just be some wear and tear on some weight-bearing joints. There's a decrease in the water content of cartilage, meaning there's less lubrication in joints. Tendons and ligaments also become less resilient to length changes, making them more rigid. One last thing we need to talk about in this chapter is, some other consequences of tissue changes or connective tissue changes is loss of flexibility, increased stiffness. Why do we care? Because that comes out as a loss of range of motion. If their soft tissues or connective tissues are not moving as well, they have a loss of range of motion. When they have a loss of range of motion, they're unable to perform their ADLs, IADLs, for lots of issues. One of the biggest is, again, fall risks. That's one of the most important things that you can possibly teach a patient or their family is how to prevent falls at home. It's a heck of a lot cheaper to pick up a throw rug than it is to fix a hip. You will not believe how much of a fight that is to have these little elderly people pick up their throw rugs that they absolutely love and adore and have had for 30 years in their floor. But picking that rug up may save their life. So, it's kind of a catch. If you have more wealthy people, I've had people that literally took all the carpet out of their house when they got older because that's one big throw rug, and your feet tends to drag more on carpet than it does on a hardwood surface. But it's kind of a catch-22. They do fall on a hardwood, floor. That's a little bit of a harder impact than it is on carpet. But our whole idea is let's prevent the fall first. What's the safest thing right now? If someone absolutely refuses to pick up throw rugs or any of that, then it's your job to help adapt those rugs, putting the rubber grips and stuff on the back. There are things you can do, but none of them are as safe as just picking it up. Okay? Any questions on that chapter?